Hello, everyone. I think this is perfect timing. Then we can talk about practical strategies after we spent the last day and a half learning so much about stats and research. So I'm not a researcher, I'm a clinician. So this will be a presentation based on my clinical experience working with girls and women on the spectrum. I work with individuals, families, I do parent coaching, and I also work with couples where one person on the spectrum or more are part of that couplehood. And I work across the lifespan, so my youngest client is 9, and my oldest client is 73. So when we talk about generalist, I'm a generalist. And I have nothing to declare. Just an overview of the presentation today. I'm going to talk about the importance of validation and acceptance when working with an individual on the spectrum. And I'm going to talk about educating them about their autism. A lot of clients are well informed about autism when they come and see me, but sometimes they need to learn a little bit more so they can advocate for themselves. And I'm going to discuss some strategies for promoting well-being. If you take away nothing else from today's presentation, I really want you to understand the importance of making the clients and the people you work with feel valued and important. Most of the people who come into my office have been told throughout their lives that they're odd, weird, that there's something wrong with them. Some of them even feel like monsters. And if you can imagine throughout life hearing those things about yourself, what impact that might have on self-esteem, self-worth, and a lot of them walk around with feelings of shame. And shame is a very toxic emotion that they carry with them in all their interactions and in their head, which can lead to depression, which is something that Dr. Gilbert spoke of today. Oftentimes you'll see a high reactivity profile. So when they're younger, perhaps, with a loud noise or some kind of fear-based interaction, they're going to have a large reaction. They've been told to, quiet down, don't be a drama queen, keep it together. And as a result, a lot of these young women have started to internalize the behaviors associated with distress. So instead of showing the world that they have these autistic behaviors, that they're struggling, it goes on the inside. And that's where you get a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the rumination, which can lead to later into self-harm. So what I like to do, I always communicate acceptance. I always believe that the people I work with have the ability to make positive changes in their lives. I'm highly genuine. I use a little bit of myself sometimes to help them feel comfortable. And I acknowledge the hardship that they've experienced prior to coming into my office, because it's really difficult to go through life where the world feels very loud and very scary, and everybody expects you to be behaving like here, but maybe you only have the skills and abilities to get about this much before you melt down. So for some people, when we work together, our therapeutic relationship is the first time in their entire lives that someone has said, I believe in you, I value you, and you're worth it. And it's very, very powerful, and it leads to a process of self-acceptance and love and change. So this slide here says, I am beautiful, not different, different, not less, challenged, not challenging, overwhelmed, not spoiled. Autism is not a choice, however, acceptance is. So communicating acceptance, whether an educator, a parent, a friend, a loved one, or maybe yourself is on the spectrum, just try to accept that person for who they are and be positive. It's very important to educate about ASD, as I mentioned. Some of the key issues I like to focus on with clients is change anxiety. This is the concept that no matter what, whether it's a positive change or a negative change, you're going to feel anxious when things are changing. And this is really helpful for them to know that this is a known entity. So when anxiety does peak, it doesn't mean that what they're doing is wrong and they're making a bad choice. It just means they might need a little bit of extra support to transition through the change. I talk about lack of filter. I'm not sure if you've heard this concept before, but a lot of people with autism are like sponges. They pick up on everything. They pick up on the sensory environment. They'll pick up on the detail and what's happening in the walls, but they'll also pick up in the emotions of other people in the room. So I talk about, and I'll speak about a little bit later, about how to set parameters to divide yourself between yourself and the external world. For some people, monofocus is a big issue. So this is the concept that they get zeroed in on something that they really find very interesting, and they have a difficulty shifting to something else. Just to give you a brief example of that, one of my clients, she's a mother. She really cares about her kids, but every time at mealtime, she got really, really overwhelmed, and she would run down the stairs and she would do scrapbooking. And she would get so focused on her scrapbooking for hours and hours and hours, and the kids would be starving. She was not a bad mother, but she needed some help with planning around mealtime, and then also strategies for shifting. So if she does want to do her scrapbooking, how can she set alerts to shift to the next activity and get back to being with her kids? I also educated about theory of mind and emotional regulation, which I'll touch on later. I find the most effective way to learn about autism is to go to the source. So I always recommend that my clients read blogs written by other people on the spectrum. They can talk about their inner experiences. There's some great books written by girls and women on the spectrum together. And I make sure that I direct my clients to those resources. Also, you want to educate the loved ones of the people on the spectrum so they understand, why are they doing that? Why are they behaving that way? And once there's a greater understanding of the attribution behind the behavior, the reason behind the behavior, then family dynamics can really start to shift. And it goes from seeing someone as maybe a problem child to someone who actually might need a little bit of help, and approaching that person with compassion instead of harsh discipline.